How much does it bother you that Vice President Harris might soon, for political reasons, start to distance herself from your economic
She's not
plan?
going to.
You don't think she's going to? Mr. President?
The strength of a nation's currency is based on the strength of that nation's economy. And the American economy is by far the strongest in the world. Accordingly, I have directed the Secretary of the Treasury to take the action necessary to defend the dollar against the speculators. I have directed Secretary Connally to suspend temporarily the convertibility of the dollar into gold or other reserve assets, except in amounts and conditions determined to be in the interest of monetary stability and in the best interest of the United States. Now, what is this action, which is very technical, what does it mean for you? Let me lay to rest the bugaboo of what is called devaluation. If you want to buy a foreign car or take a trip abroad, market conditions may cause your dollar to buy slightly less. But if you are among the overwhelming majority of Americans who buy American-made products in America, your dollar will be worth just as much tomorrow as it is today. The effect of this action, in other words, will be to stabilize the dollar.
When I'm president, we will deport the foreign jihad sympathizers, and we will deport them very quickly, and Hamas supporters will be gone. If you hate America, if you want to eliminate Israel, then we don't want you in our country. We really don't want you in our country. I will ban refugee settlements from terror-infested areas like the Gaza Strip, and we will arrest the pro-Hamas thugs who vandalize federal property and make really life very, very difficult in this country for a lot of people.
Welcome to the Cryptoteacher. And you know I come back with that video just to make you think.
Don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel.
And make sure you join the Patrons. If you're not a part of the Patrons, make sure you're hitting the Cash App. And guys, make sure you go to TikTok, like, and follow. And we have Biden and Trump on the economy, now Kamala. Remember the Hegelian dialectic. Someone has to blame each other while the consumer, while the Americans, while the globe takes the hit. And remember, we have all this inflation because of government spending and the Fed printing money. But it was for a reason. So the fourth industrial revolution can rise. Whether robots, algorithms, and drones take the economy over, pay each other with crypto, and the sheep go inside the metaverse. And we have Nixon 53 years ago. Guys, 53 years ago. And we know all fiat dies. And the Fed just sped it up. Printed 80% of all money in existence in 2 years. You can't make this stuff up. And unfortunately, the masses stay distracted on things that don't matter. And we have Trump telling you how he feels about Israel. And it should not surprise anyone. I showed you plenty of times of who saved Trump. And they turned him into the best snake oil salesman in the globe. Now we have Goldman Sachs and Bitcoin. But guys, we know Goldman Sachs has been in stable coins, Bitcoin, and crypto from the beginning. All these big banks and big corporations were funding these digital assets for the new digital economy. And then we have Bitcoin being very volatile and gold hitting highs. But guys, remember, the central banks are buying up gold. But remember, Bitcoin is manipulated the same way gold is. And with all the trillions that are sitting on the sideline, they can buy these digital assets and stocks anytime. Remember, they want everything pennies on the dollar. And will the Fed do 50 basis points in September? And I think they will. And don't forget, the meeting is September 18th for the Fed, and who also is on the 18th, Trump's sentencing date. So we're definitely in for a lot of entertainment. And the inverted yield curve always indicates a recession. But guys, remember, we've been in a recession. Now we're in a Great Depression. It's just the Fed holding things up. But we know once we get this new president, The movie is about to be turned up. We see the drums of beating cyber attacks, monkeypox. Your life is an illusion. TV is your reality. And now we're seeing the real estate agent game being changed, but real estate agents don't know. This is all about artificially bringing home prices down, because now the seller can bring down some of the costs if the buyer is going to be paying the closing costs. Remember, the NWO is 10, 20, 30 years ahead of time. These housing prices over the next 3 to 5 years are going to plummet, because now we have machines building homes, 3D printed homes. I've done plenty of videos on it. Majority of the Americans who had wealth received it from real estate. And of course, the NWO does not want that. So now they're about to plummet these housing prices. And remember, the Cryptoteacher told you, because he knows when it comes to the NWO, it's all planned out. You have a wonderful day.
Leaning into that Bitcoin trade, Mac, who is it?
Goldman Sachs.
Okay.
So this week we got a fresh take on what institutional adoption looks like with those U.S. spot Bitcoin ETFs. And Goldman Sachs added $418 million across 7 different U.S. spot Bitcoin ETFs, more than half of that in Blackrock, the IBIT fund. And what's interesting is that it was just in April that their wealth management unit CIO told the Wall Street Journal that there wasn't much client appetite for that product. Clearly that tune has changed. You've seen other banks jump in, HSBC, Bank of America.
Morgan Stanley.
But what's interesting is that they actually paired their holdings in these spot Bitcoin products.
They just pitch them more to their clients, apparently, right now.
Yeah,
right?
yeah. As of the last week, there are 15,000 FAs are now allowed to pitch it out to certain clients.
Now, that's who's leaning in, getting more into it. At the same time, there's always a yang to the yin. Who's kind of backing out or kind of paring back?
Well, I mean, talking about Morgan Stanley again, they had a $270 million position in Q1. They pared that down to $189 million, switched out their Grayscale shares for Blackrock. That's a common trend. But then you're also seeing names in the hedge fund space, like Millennium Management, which remains the biggest single holder of Blackrock's IBIT fund. But they're down to $1.1 billion from $2 billion. And that's also, you've got Elliott Management completely exiting their position. So there are people paring back their stake, JP Morgan as well, though they had a pretty tepid share to start with.
It's such an important piece of the liquidity fabric of this market. It quietly is not acting great here. So we got to keep tabs on that. And I want to watch consumer discretionary as well, right? If retail sales yesterday put to bed some of the consumer fears, let's see discretionary confirm that.
I guess Bitcoin is the one that seems curious to me. Is it a proxy for the triple Qs? Is that broken down?
I mean, that relationship has been intact for a couple years. I think what's more important is the relationship between Bitcoin and gold, right? For 2 years, they moved together every tick. And that was very easy to explain. Bitcoin and gold moving together because liquidity is abundant. You would expect them to work. The last 4 or 5 weeks, they've done this, right? Gold at new highs today, 2,500 change.
Yeah.
Our target's 2,800 there. While Bitcoin has kind of moved in a different direction. Why? We've seen gold be both risk on and risk off in its history. We've never seen Bitcoin be a risk off indicator. So if Bitcoin's not working here, you begin to wonder, are there some marginal changes to the liquidity picture?
How do you interpret the fact that the 13Fs revealed a lot of investment, not necessarily in Bitcoin, but in the ETFs?
Yeah, and I think if the institutional money is behind it, shouldn't it be making new highs? So I'm a little bit off-put by the fact that we've had this very, very sharp rally in the S&P back to the highs. It has looked like a good rally under the surface, but there's a little hint of change at the margin. Yields really haven't bounced that much. Bitcoin has not made a new high. Gold acts really well. How do we solve that macro puzzle?
What is your expectation come September in terms of what the Fed is going to do?
Well, I'll say this. The 2-year bond yield is telling the Fed they need to take 140 basis points out. Okay, so if you look at where that yield sits relative to the Fed funds rate, that's 140 basis points. And if you look back historically, they generally have taken the stairs and then had to go and take the elevator on the way down. If you go back to 2000, for example, they raised twice in the first quarter and the second quarter, and then in January of 2001, they pulled 50 out. So I think they need to pull out 140, and that's based on what the bond market's saying. How quickly they do it is up to them. And what I would say is that just because you showed up late to the party doesn't mean you get to overstay your welcome. And it seems to me that we're doing that right now. So I'm a little bit nervous about the prospects that things are going to get more challenging for these companies.
Okay, so you talked about the stairs and and an elevator. What about an escalator?
What about an escalator?
An escalator.
They took an escalator. They took an escalator on the way.
So for you, does that mean you think 50 basis points comes in September?
I think they should do 50 basis points.
But you think they won't?
I think they probably won't. I think they want to give the opinion that they are moving in a very methodical way, but generally that's not what happens. There's some data point that comes out, like the inflation or like the unemployment print, that really starts to jolt them. So again, I think that investors should be thinking about the areas that would be benefiting from less interest expense, and one of those areas is REITs, not very loved. Right. But I'll point to two areas that are actually beating the S&P 500 year to date that not a lot of people realize. Utilities and regional banks, both beating the S&P, which is pretty remarkable considering NVIDIA makes up such a large portion of the S&P and is powering so much of the gain. So you're already seeing the interest rate sensitive plays start working out in the marketplace. I expect this will continue.
But you are the person who originated the idea of the yield curve as a recession indicator. And I'd like to ask you to update us on how that's going, or not.
Yeah, so the yield curve has got a record of 8 out of 8 with no false signals going back to the 1960s.
What is this really going to do starting tomorrow?
Listen, as you just heard, there's a couple of changes. First of all, offers of compensation are still allowed. They just aren't going to be communicated via the MLS.
And going to a different economy, and we're going to be learning more about that as we go. But clearly, we're learning that things can be done from remote locations. We're learning that technology can replace people even more than we thought.
We're not going back to the same economy. We're recovering, but to a different economy, and it'll be one that is more leveraged to technology. And I worry that that is going to make it even more difficult than it was for many workers.
In Silicon Valley, and my friends who work in technology know that what we did to the manufacturing workers, we are now going to do to the retail workers, the call center workers, the fast food workers, the truck drivers, and then even bookkeepers, accountants, insurance agents, lawyers, and on through the economy. So what happened to the manufacturing workers is a very clear sign.
And so we'll import Chinese-based CBDC technology. So it's going to be CBDC in a box provided to you by the People's Bank of China.
But every stock, every bond, every currency, every commodity, every piece of art, every private business, every piece of real estate will eventually be a token on a blockchain, an entry on a ledger, permanent and immutable. We will have truth instead of trust, and we will save over $7 trillion a year. 6 to 8% of global GDP is wasted by the friction of the trust industry that's necessary when you have dual entry accounting. With triple entry accounting, which is what a blockchain is, we get rid of all of that friction. It's a beautiful future.
Like what you see in China and their social credit scoring systems, right? If we get identity wrong, it could be a tool to enslave humanity. And if we get it right, it could be a tool to liberate humanity. And as an American, I'm obviously rooting for the one that's on the side of freedom.
Bitcoin is an international asset. And also, I do believe the role of crypto is, it's digitizing gold.
I actually believe this technology is going to be very important. Look at it. We have been part of the huge revolution in investing through ETFs. We believe that ETFs will be changing the whole way we invest. Many people still use it as a means, people are investing it for indexing. No, the majority of people who are putting money in in ETFs are active investors that are buying exposure. The entire bond market is being transformed as we talk right now. I believe the next generation for markets, the next generation for securities will be tokenization of securities. And if we could have that distributed ledger that we know every beneficial owner, every beneficial seller, we all have our code of who's buying, who's selling, instantaneous settlement. And think about it, it changes the whole ecosystem.
Chinese bank ICBC has been hit by a ransomware attack, and the U.S. Treasury market, as a result of that, has been disrupted. This, according to the Financial Times. We're getting more right now with Bloomberg's Shonali Bassick. Shonali, what do we know?
Listen, we have the Financial Times now reporting that ICBC, one of China's largest banks here, was hit with a ransomware attack. And remember, they're a very significant intermediary in the Treasury market. The SIFMA has told its members that this has been part of the reason here that the system is kind of clogged up, if you will, during that auction that we saw a little bit before. The attack had prevented ICBC, according to the Financial Times, from settling Treasury trades on behalf of other market participants. A large executive at a major bank also telling the paper that such a large party on the fixed income clearing corp creates major concerns, potentially impacting the liquidity of Treasury markets.
Now, it was not just a poor auction. It was absolutely lousy. And you know, when the dealers have to step in to save a Treasury auction, that's a rare occurrence. And
Cryptoteacher and the new World Order book, plus the 3 kids books. It's time to re-educate. Also, new to cryptos, Coinbase, Bitrue, Binance. Do not forget book links and crypto links are in the description. The stock channel, guys. Don't forget to go like, subscribe, spread everywhere. You have your Kobo, your chip stocks, your banking, your gaming. While everybody's sitting at home, get home stocks, the Seaver, the biotech stocks. And while everybody's at home wishing, they were still getting that free money. What are they doing? Drinking and smoking weed. Don't forget about those stocks, and you have a wonderful day. The most powerful person in the world is the storyteller. The storyteller sets the vision, values, and agenda of an entire generation to come. Steve Jobs. And guys, you know I truly believe in this. When you look at the New World Order, they're the storytellers. And that's the reason why I wrote my New World Order book. But guys, now it's time to change the current generation. And I wrote 3 kids books. You know I love the Trinity because I understand the power that's in it. So I have 3 books. We have an opportunity to change the generation, to educate, not just me, but I want to show you that I take action on a daily basis. And I want you to take action on a daily basis. Whether it's your job, whether it's in your community, we have an opportunity right now to educate the masses. I posted this on my Twitter account. Please share, but this is a short clip of the 3 books. There's going to be a clothing line and action figures. Please get these books for your kids, nephews, cousins, friends, so therefore we can start the re-education now. Because as we see, the 4th Industrial Revolution foundation is definitely here. Robots, algorithms, drones, taking humanity out the picture. We have to re-educate. But let's get into the video.
Part 1. King Joshua and Drama Team save the village. Part 2. King Joshua and Drama Team save New York from COVID Stories 3. Part 3. King Joshua and Drama Team goes to China.
It's mandatory to get part 1, part 2, and part 3 of this series. It's time to re-educate Generation Z.